Welcome to FEMTECH Live Lounge, a monthly discussion that celebrates the intersection of technology and the AI industry. This series is presented by Virtual Patent Gateway. Our guest interviewer today is Dina Blikshteyn, a partner in the Intellectual Property Practice Group in the New York office of Haynes Boone. Dina's practice focuses on post-grant proceedings before the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and she routinely counsels domestic and international companies on issues germane to intellectual property. Dina is a co-chair of the Artificial Intelligence practice at Haynes Boone and regularly speaks and writes on various AI topics. Dina is joined by Silvia Carretta, the Chief Legal Officer of Women in AI, a global do tank working towards gender-inclusive AI. And with that, I'll pass things over to Dina.
Thank you, Caitlin. And Silvia is not just the Chief Legal Officer of Women in AI. Silvia is also a scholar practitioner pursuing a joint doctoral degree in AI and law at Uppsala University and the Wallenberg AI Autonomous Systems and Software Program at the Humanity and Society Graduate School in Sweden. And I believe Silvia just moved back to Sweden from US, where she was a fellow at the Digital Life Initiative in Cornell Tech, which is also affiliated with Informational Law Institute at NYU Law School.
Thank you, Dina, for the presentation, and thank you, Kathleen, as well. It's lovely being here.
Great. So I'm going to do a cross-examination on Silvia, but before we get started, let's do our disclaimer that this is for informational purposes only. This is not intended to be a legal advice of any kind, and if you have any legal questions, to the extent that they arise, you need to contact either us online, offline, or legal counsel. And with that, let's start it. Silvia, what has attracted you to artificial intelligence? I mean, I understand now it's a super hot field, but a few years ago, it was just another word.
Oh my, that's a good question. I've always been interested in new technologies and the way that they sort of challenge the law about keeping up or evolving in order to handle the issues that arise from these new technologies. I initially wrote my law school dissertation on a topic of e-commerce contracts and jurisdictional and applicable law issues, and then from that it was just the first step into this world of AI and law where I actually work. I did my second research in the field of blockchain for the music industry. So trying to discuss this new technology that was also very, very popular a few years back. Some may say still is. But I believe it is definitely overshadowed by artificial intelligence. And 5 years ago, I started learning about AI and the enormous discussion that were happening at European level in terms of the principles and ethical guidelines, etc., of AI made me think that, well, I think that something connection to law and the regulation of AI might be useful in the future. And I sort of ended up following this sort of interest of mine into my current role, both in private practice.
It's not just the future, right? There's a lot of regulation coming out of EU right now for AI.
It is. And like I said all the time, I think that the new regulation are needed and important, but they don't just come out of blue. We have legislation that are applicable, but they might not be perfectly adaptable to the new technologies that are coming out. So that's why we need new regulation to shape how the law sees and connects itself to the new technologies. But it's not like we are coming out of, we're not reinventing the wheel. There's already a lot of legislation in place, and the fundamental principles and fundamental rights, they still stand. and they should always be, I think, the backbone on any regulation, current or
Right.
future.
Well, it's just when the regulations were written, and it's also the same in US. It's they haven't really thought about machines who can think as humans or try to think as humans or invent things. So it
Oh yeah.
seems like the regulations are trying to adapt, but so do the companies that are using AI, right? So
Oh,
I know you,
indeed.
yeah. So you're heading the global organization, right? You're the chief legal officer at Women in AI. So you see the challenges that the companies face when they try to implement AI worldwide. Can you give us any tips?
Well, I'm glad you did the disclaimer at the beginning, because the tips that I can give are something that we are doing, but I don't know whether they are, the best practices, or whether they work in every industry for every company. It changes a lot between nonprofit and, company for profit, company within the US, within Europe. And I think mainly this is the big challenge. When you have legislation that is in place in different countries, or whether you have certain regions of the world that are lagging in terms of regulation, or maybe have gaps into um, regulating the use of AI on society, it is really difficult to be able to sort of comply with all the regulations all over the world, especially if you are an organization that handles um, the relationship with many countries at the same time. So, for instance, Women in AI is operating worldwide. We have more than 75 countries where we have a local community, and we have members participating in our activities. And the first question is, how do we regulate them all? And even if we go up on a higher level and we say, okay, let's just look at the regional, we have the EMEA, we have the APAC, we have all the America, either south or north, that's also another division. How do you uh, consider all of the different technicalities, the development of technology, the different industry? So it's
And don't
difficult.
forget regulations in an ever-changing space and both
Yeah,
country and regional levels.
yes. And I mean, as a lawyer, how do you keep up? I have so many newsletters that I read, and all the information that I receive from colleagues saying, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? I sometimes, no, I did not. I did not have the time to keep up and catch up, but it's in my to-do list. I will read it over the weekend. So what I can say is that there needs to be maybe two things: a dedication to keeping up to date to what is happening, because unfortunately this space is developing really fast, both in terms of new regulation, new guidelines for application of this regulation, new suggestions that are coming out from the district, different administrative offices on how to relate with this technology. So it's important to be curious. It's important to put in the time and uh, keep oneself updated with what is going on. And I think few newsletter or few podcast could be a good solution, rather than reading everything and staying too much of a higher level. So keeping track, being curious. And the second part, I think it's important to be able to rely on local experts, both within different teams, but also for us at Women in AI, we rely on the expertise at local level, because we would not be able to do what we do without having the different ambassadors and core team members in the different countries, that they know they have hands-on expertise into what is happening at their level.
Right.
So this is
And
probably,
especially right now, since the regulation is changing so quickly, and you almost have a new regulation law or act coming out in like different countries every month,
yeah.
if not every week.
Exactly. I mean, especially today, we finally, and this is a news that I suppose most of us have seen. Uh, the one of us that went to LinkedIn today, they probably saw that we formally have a European AI Act. It's been voted positively by the EU Parliament. So this is definitely a big step toward the AI Act coming into force. It will definitely require a lot of time into understanding how to apply it, which are the guidelines for application and what are the struggles for understanding maybe the writing and the meaning behind the certain provisions. Because it's one thing to say, yes, we have the AI Act, we have the new regulation, DSA, DMA, data regulation, etc., at a European level. I'm talking. But it's another thing to say, let's apply it to our situation. Let's see, does this fall under this situation or not? And what does it mean, this specific word?
Right. So what do you think? Is EU trying to put themselves as the leader in AI? Do you think US and China would follow the lead? Or do you think they will come up with their own regulation and it will become even harder to keep track?
That's a good question, and it's one that it's a bit hard to reply for sure, because I think a lot of this is based on the different industries I mentioned. There are certain industry where there is stronger regulation already in place, and there are more similarities between the different regions. Other are completely the opposite. um, I think the positive part is definitely that Europe has done a great job into breaching this line and becoming the first one to issue a regulation. Is it perfect? I don't know. Is it gonna work perfectly? I don't know. Is it gonna create issue? For sure, but at least we have one. It's a good starting point. And as I mentioned before, the European approach tends to oftentimes be more connected to the respect of fundamental values and human rights rather than maybe the protection of the business side of the company. Chinese and American perspective, in my understanding, is a bit different. So I'm not sure that they will follow fully the European approach, although a lot of people are talking about this Bruxelles effect, how the European Union will sort of like expand its reach, sort of like across jurisdiction, being the first one that has issued this regulation. I definitely see this happening. It's already happening. The fact that the
Yeah, I
European
mean,
Union is a bit ahead. A lot of states, not just the US and China, but also a lot of countries are trying to catch up, which is good in the sense that if we look up to someone, it could be like a good leading role. But there are different cultural, historical, economical, political factors that needs to be taken in consideration in each of these regions.
now I completely agree with you. And, especially in US where we have the Biden's executive order, but it essentially delegates everything to different federal agencies. So we may have a lot of disparate,
Yeah,
regulation in US, which is
exactly.
going to be different from Europe. But then again, for you, that means keeping track of all of that, and then everything that's coming out of Asia as well.
Yeah, that is definitely what I was referring to before in terms of the different approaches to regulation. I don't doubt the new regulation will come from different countries. What I think uh, um, multi will multiply the difficulty is that we will have a lot of different authorities issuing regulations. Like, for instance, in the US, it's going to be more a federal level. In Europe, instead, was more at central level. So if every state in US will have a new approach to the regulation of AI, not just at administrative level, we're going to have at least 50 more point of views to coordinate. So yeah,
Well,
I hope that's not going to be the
that's what
case.
makes our job as attorneys interesting and fun. But we mentioned this earlier, the organization Women in AI. which you've been at for some time. Can you tell us what it is and what it does?
Absolutely, would be my pleasure.
And I know it's a loaded question, so, but
So
go
I
for
will
it.
give you the elevator pitch. So I've been with Women in AI for a little bit more than 5 years now, in different roles, and lately as a chief legal officer, as you mentioned. What we do is that we are a do tank that works toward bringing equality and respect for diversity in the field of artificial intelligence. And what we work mainly with is the idea of, on one side, developing education activities and as well as research activities in order to develop the expertise of our members. And on the other side, we have outreach programs where we help the community to either understand better what AI is, or maybe even do a career switch for those who, maybe are a little bit more ahead in their career journey. So we have sort of like, two parts: the education and the research are the main scope. We have a lot of partnership at local level, as I mentioned, in the different countries that are represented by the ambassadors. So what the ambassadors are doing in each country varies so much. It goes from conferences, events, mentorship programs, different partnership connected to a specific talk. Then it happens at different expertise level. They have a lot of collaboration, for instance, with the university, but in terms of research, but also collaboration with high schools and sometimes even middle schools in order to, start them young into this new field. Because, like I said, it's not just about um, having a pivot in the career, in the sense of trying to switch and enter more into this upcoming field of AI, but it's also about the younger generation being aware of this technology, which they were basically born with. Whoever is in middle school or high school these days is using this technology since their entire life, I would say.
Well, I
um
know they're definitely using ChatGPT and hopefully not to cheat on tests, but I definitely know that kids are using it for homework and
oh yeah,
travel and all that other fun stuff.
absolutely. But if you think about it, even just using different application for looking for a journey to go from place A to place B, or different voice assistants that are either used in our phones, or if they're used in our smart system at home. A lot of our kids live with this, and we do too. I mean, I rely on this voice assistant so much in terms of my work commitments as well, and those are all based on AI, different level. And here, I'm not an extremely technical expert in this, but if we have some AI expert or data scientists, we say, well, what do you mean by AI? Is it machine learning, deep learning? It really depends. AI is a broad umbrella terms, and maybe this is another difficulties that we could mention. We are talking about working with, in women in AI, with women working in AI. We're talking about trying to comply with regulation that handle AI. What really is AI? Where do we draw the line between previous technology and current AI? And when we draw the line in 2, 5, 10 years into something that, okay, this is not AI anymore, it's an obsolete AI. So in 2022 it was AI, now it is something that we just went so much above and beyond. um,
Which actually brings me to my next question, right? So you have women who and also kids who know and grow up with AI, and they're trying to enter the AI field, but they don't really know either how to do it or what classes to take or which questions to ask. What would you recommend to women or even college graduates who want to
yeah.
enter the AI field?
So I'm gonna do a shout out here to what we do at Women in AI, because, like I said, we are We are a nonprofit do tank, and our goal is exactly this: trying to allow those who are interested in AI. They don't need to be expert. They don't need to know exactly what it is. They don't need to have a master in data science or have worked with AI for years.
They
We
don't need to know
like
how machine learning models work.
Exactly. We work with those who want to bring a difference in the world, wants to make sure that there is diversity, inclusivity in this field, but in the tech field in general. So we focus on this sort of like a narrow field of AI, but it's not like we draw a line and say, oh, no, this is not AI, it's another type of tech. So we don't do that. But what I would advise is reach out to us, go on our website, see what we're doing, see whether there is an active group chapter in your city or in your country. Reach out to the ambassador and ask what kind of activities are done. I would say that the vast majority of the activities that we do, either in terms of mentorship, in terms of education, in terms of crash courses on AI, in terms of research with academia, mostly are free. So I would suggest to strongly reach out and see what's happening out there. You can also reach out to me if you are a person that has a legal background and an interest in law. We are always looking for new people to collaborate with. But yes, I think there's a lot of free opportunities online, and usually, if I have to show my bias toward open source and open knowledge, I think a lot of activities and a lot of courses and a lot of resources that are free online, oftentimes they are very good quality, because those who create them for free, they have the goal of sharing knowledge and sharing resources rather than making a profit out of it. So there's tons of opportunity out there. It's just a matter of you know trying to look the one that
Finding it.
works better.
And,
Yes, exactly. And everybody has
and, I,
different needs and different desires. So there's a lot of options.
right. And before you mentioned that you have 75 ambassadors in different countries. So there is a lot of ways that one can
Yes,
reach out to women in AI to see what's going
absolutely.
on.
We have 15,000 members worldwide. So the countries where we have a core representation are, the one that I mentioned, but we have a lot of countries where there are, not as many members as we would hope, and we are hoping to grow. So there are good chances that there will be someone that knows about women in AI in mostly many countries in the world. And if not, I mean, reach out. Well, you could be the one taking charge of the developing this organization in the new country. Why not? Like I said, the goal is to open up the opportunities and sharing it with them. We are open to all sex and gender and age, and however define yourself. We are welcoming you as long as you have an interest in AI. Whether it's a technical background or a humanities background, like me, for instance, as a lawyer, I have a humanity background and I'm still working in AI. So AI is literally everywhere nowadays.
Yes. And Women in AI provides a great opportunity for free classes and seminars to get your foot in the door. But Sylvia, you also mentioned that you're a postdoctorate fellow and you do the research in the AI
I'm
space.
doctoral researcher.
Doctoral
Hopefully,
researcher.
hopefully a postdoc soon, but not yet.
So, can you tell us about the research that you do in the AI space?
Yes, gladly. So, what I'm looking at right now is the use of AI for moderation of content online on social media platforms. And what I was interested in mainly is the fact that most of the online platforms use artificial intelligence tools and system to curate the content that is shared online. And oftentimes this also impacts users' rights such as freedom of expression, access to content, protection from non-discrimination, protection from hate speech and harmful content. And what I thought was interesting was the fact that we do have this technology on one side, and on the other side, we have regulation for moderation of content online and platform governance. But we also have contractual agreements in place between the platforms and the users, because whenever we create a new account online, we always are asked to sign these very long terms and conditions and saying, do you agree? Well, if you do, you have an account. If you don't, see you bye. So this
But no
is
one
the
ever reads, right?
no one ever reads them. They are super long. They're extremely difficult. They have a very technical language that even lawyers find very. They struggle with like reading for that many pages. So what I'm looking at right now is the impact that algorithmic content moderation has on users and on fundamental rights of users. I'm mainly looking at this from a European perspective, but the reason why I did my fellowship at Cornell in the US because I wanted to have a comparative understanding of the US and the EU perspective, mainly because most of these online platforms are American companies. So they follow a different business model compared to maybe a European ones. And I have to say that it was extremely interesting and fascinating to learn about the different approaches. And hopefully, I'll be finalizing my book in a few months.
I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm also going to ping you to know exactly what rights I'm giving away when I'm, traveling through Europe as opposed to when I'm in the United States.
Oh yeah, we can definitely have a longer discussion about that.
So, Sylvia, any takeaways that you can give us, either about women in AI in general, what it's like to be a chief legal officer or of national or an international organization?
um, well, starting from the last is the being a chief legal officer in an international organization is it's hard, but it's fun. You get to meet so many interesting people, get to learn about new regulations and new perspective every day from different countries in the world. So I'm a very avid traveler, and if I have to say, I get to virtually travel with for work almost every day, being in contact from Australia to South Korea to Philippines, and then going through all the European countries, and then again South Africa, Nigeria, Mexico, US, and Canada. And these are the more or less the countries that I talk to, or the people that live in this country daily. So it's fascinating, a lot of fun, and a lot of learning experience for me as well. I learned every day. In terms of takeaway, what I can say is, um, don't be afraid of AI, and feel free to reach out to Women in AI through our website, or to me, or through LinkedIn, and see whether there's something that we do that could be interesting for you, and whether you want to learn as a sort of like a newbie to AI, or whether you are an expert. We are also very interested about that too.
So I see a question that pop up. I think we have a couple of minutes to answer it. So
Yeah.
the question
Let's
is,
see.
what are some of the biggest ways that AI has helped you in the legal field?
Oof, wow, this is very, I don't know if we only have, if we'll be able to answer all of this in 2 minutes. So I'll be try to be super quick. The biggest way that it has helped is automatization, the ability to use tools to do things that before were done by human manual labor. So having my emails read and assigned to different categories, or different um, folders based on whatever needs I have. The possibility to go through a text and see whether there are some keywords, or there are some, templates that I can use to repetitively use and read and do. So I think automatization is definitely the biggest way that AI can help. have I received a pushback? Luckily, not in Women AI, because everybody's really keen into automatization and using AI and technology. Possibly because if they work with women in AI, they are interested in AI. But I have a lot of colleagues that work in the legal industry, and I think maybe out of the many industry, we are the industry that is probably the slowest to approach the implementation of new technologies. There's always a fear of, oh, what are we going to do? What if there are liability issues? What if there are, data breaches, etc. So yes, pushback. Um, but yeah, the new technologies and the legal tech world are definitely changing and moving fast. So hopefully we'll see a lot of things happening in the future in
Yes.
this
And
sphere as well.
I also think there'll be less pushback in the future than it is now, particularly in the legal context.
Absolutely. I mean, if we think about 5 years ago or 2 years ago, after the pandemic, there's been a huge change into understanding how much this technology can help if used in the correct way.
And I completely agree with you there. Well, thank you so much, Sylvia, for joining us on FemTech in FemTech Live Lounge, and also thank you to Ashley Chung for organizing this. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Dina. The pleasure was all mine, and I look forward to talk to you again.
Likewise.